model teaching and learning facilities. This means we have had an extended academic year which was not allocated additional money. Secondly, we had budget cuts across government departments. Thirdly, because of the deteriorating economic situation, many NSFAS applicants now, who in the past were not previously meeting the funding requirements, now do, due to the fact that they come now from families, though they were able to afford to pay in the past, but now because of retrenchments and collapse in a number of businesses, they can no longer afford. Of course, as I have said, not all these shortfalls are due to COVID-19 alone. The deteriorating economic situation associated with budget cuts had started long before COVID-19. In terms of the laws and policies regulating public finances for departments and entities, including the Public Finance Management Act, NSFAS is not able to commit to funding students without the requisite budget available to support this commitment. I am, however, pleased to formally announce and confirm today that NSFAS is going to be funding all returning NSFAS beneficiaries who meet the academic and other relevant criteria for continuing with their studies. Engifisa ukusho namhlanje ukuthi bonke labafundi abathola uxhaso ngaphansi kwaNSFAS abesebevele besemanyuvesi namakolisi ethu, uma bephasile benze kahle sizokwazi ukuqhubeka sibakhokhela. Kusho ukuthi ke ayikho inkinga kwamanje ngakulolu hlangothi. In this regard, the usual processes apply, whereby institutions share the relevant registration data and information with NSFAS, which is then able to confirm the funded list of students with institutions. During the budget vote speech of the Minister of Finance, Mr. Tito Mboweni, on the 24th of February 21, he indicated that government remains committed, to use his own words, to ensuring that deserving students are supported through higher education. In line with this commitment, the Minister of Finance then directed that the Department of Higher Education and Training should work with the National Treasury to identify policy and funding options to be detailed in the medium-term budget policy statement. I can confirm that this work is underway and options will be presented to Cabinet this Wednesday for its consideration and approval. The student funding policy is the responsibility of government as a whole, not just our department. But as the minister responsible for higher education and training, I have to get concurrence and approval by Cabinet. We are doing everything possible to resolve this issue as a matter of extreme urgency. And we are quite hopeful, we want to say so, in the light of the commitment by the Minister of Finance that no deserving student will actually be turned away if they meet the requirements. The funding guidelines for universities for 2021 will be finalized as soon as Cabinet has made its determination in this regard this week. This morning I consulted the universities through Universities South Africa, USAF, and I've also engaged with the South African Union of Students on these matters. As common practice, we will continue to consult all our stakeholders in the post-school education and training sector on any developments within the sector to ensure that there is no stakeholder that is left behind. Not only is our sector experiencing challenges, however, we also have good news further to share today. Apart from the first that I've already indicated, that all continuing students who have met the requirements, who are beneficiaries of NSFAS, will all be supported. We have agreed with all our universities, this is good news, that they will extend their registration period for first-time entering students for 2 more weeks, which means for this week and next week, so that none of the first-time entering students are disadvantaged by the delay in the finalization of this matter. And I have also indicated, and we have agreed with our universities, that care should be taken that NSFAS beneficiaries who do not as yet have indication of whether they will be funded or not are not jeopardized. In other words, we are not expecting our universities to take less than they had planned to take of NSFAS students, and the Vice Chancellors have agreed, such that NSFAS students first time entering are not going to be disadvantaged. As the Ministry of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, we have been building comprehensive programs, systems, controls through the establishment of guidelines, protocols, capacity building at all levels, firmly grounded in the growing body of science and latest epidemiological data in responding to COVID-19. As seems to be the case, COVID-19 is here to stay for the foreseeable future. It doesn't seem to be seasonal at the moment. This means that we must all stay alert to the changing landscape and keep on planning for the months and possible years ahead. I wish to applaud the many students who have adapted to these difficult circumstances and develop new ways of learning and of coping. I must also acknowledge that this has been a challenging time for the academic staff of our institutions, who have had to adapt rapidly to new forms of teaching and student support, and who have shown commitment to learning themselves and supporting students, often across multiple different platforms. I commend this work, as well as the work of institutional managers, administrators and support staff who have worked hard to adapt to the necessary circumstances and the necessary changes. Let me once more take this opportunity to express my most sincere appreciation, in particular to the ordinary frontline workers, such as security guards, cleaning and administrative staff, whose crucial role in the fight against the spread of the virus is often not properly recognized. We acknowledge and recognize them again today. These workers have and continue to play a very important role in ensuring that as a people as we move about and enter different work and other spaces, we do not spread the virus or expose ourselves and others. I also thank the staff and union leaders and student leaders who have contributed to planning and support at institutional level. Let us keep on keeping safe. As I conclude, and as I have indicated that Cabinet is going to be taking a final decision this week, I will then be holding a more detailed media briefing later this week to update the sector on the beginning of the 2021 academic year and further developments on the funding issues related to first-time entering students and other related matters, as I indicated earlier. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the briefing. May I now open the floor to the members of the media for any clarity-seeking question based on the Minister's statement. Please introduce yourself, the media house that you represent, and state your question briefly. Thank you very much. We do also have Ignatius, who's mending our lines. He will also read any messages that might have been sent so that the Minister and the DG can respond. Probably let me start with Ignatius. Are we having any further questions? No questions? Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions in the house? I recognize you, sir. Any further hand? Okay, for now, let me give you an opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Misi. My name is Malu Hussein, SABC News. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. My name is Malu Hussein, SABC News. The first question, how much has been budgeted to fund students this year? And then my second question would be, we would like to hear the minister's response regarding the number of first students that universities can take. We know that in Limpopo, the University of Limpopo is saying it's only able to take only 5,000, even though there are more than 20,000 students qualifying in that area. Also, that's made the same announcement. And also, there's a High Court case involving UNISA as well as the Department of Higher Education. I'd like to hear the minister's response on those. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You're referring to the first entrant students, new students.
Yes, the number of first year students. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I see a hand this side. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself and the organization you represent.
Ignatius, I have a few questions.
Oh, Ignatius. Okay.
And I have Tando Kubega from Eyewitness News. What is the higher education sector doing to ensure that academically deserving students who are part of the missing middle are not excluded due to historical death? And I have another question from her. Please clarify whether students who receive the SASA relief grant of 350 will qualify for Nexus Bazaar. And I have Sisona from News 24. Can the minister clarify the confusion around reports that students who receive the SASA refund, I think it's the same question that Tando Kubega asked.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any further questions? This will be the last round so that the minister and the DG could provide responses. Okay, for now. May I start with you, Minister, and the DG will come.
Thank you. I will leave the question between the DG and Tandy on the number of students we are taking this year. I don't have the figures with me here. I'm sure, Tandy, at least you should be having those so that we give you the exact answers. On UNISA, the court case, it's unfortunate really that we've reached this stage on the UNISA matter. Because I want to say on my part that no one wants to see exclusion of any students in our system who should actually be absorbed. Now, this matter is a bit difficult then to deal with in some detail because it's before the courts at this point in time. All I can say, apart from no one wanting to punish or see students excluded, all what we did as a department, and it's an opportunity to explain this again, was to insist with all our institutions that they must stick to agreed to enrollment plans. All of our universities, not just UNISA. We have got 6-year student enrollment plans in our system. We are next year going to be in the middle of this current 6-year period. Every institution of government that takes people for whatever reason, like educational institutions, would have numbers that have an upper limit. It's like a hospital. If a hospital has 800 beds, it's got 800 beds. So also are our universities. That if they have got so much spaces that are funded, they are expected to not take more or less of the students. If any one of the institution decides to take more, that has got huge implications. One, it means then we've got to take money from other institutions to support those who have gone beyond the limit that they've actually been set. Secondly, it means we have got students who are beyond the capacity of the institution that we had agreed upon. It was very unfortunate for UNISA for 2 years in a row to decide to enroll more students. All what we said to UNISA is that we need to correct that. We can't continue to be doing this, because if we allow it, we are going to be throwing our enrollment plans out of the window, because that's the only money that we have as government. It's not a means of punishing students, but it's to ensure that we've got a system that is actually going to meet student needs. I can't say more than that now, because the matter is before the courts. But I just want to reiterate, no one is against UNISA, no one is for exclusion of students, where students actually should be taken. But at the same time, we all have to stick to our enrollment plans. I noticed the portfolio committee, to its credit, has decided to call UNISA to come and explain why did they exceed and who was responsible for that, so that the person or people responsible for that must actually account. Because this has created an unnecessary situation and an unnecessary tension, and an attempt now by our detractors to try and project our government as if our government is for exclusion of students. We are not for that. That is why we are paying billions of rands to support students with NSFAS, which is what I have been announcing today again. Now, students with disabilities, there is a lot that government is doing for students with disabilities. I know you're asking about those in the missing middle, but we must not just look only at those. We must look at NSFAS students. NSFAS students with disabilities, we take them even if they are coming from families that are earning more than 350,000. In fact, students with disabilities are admitted if they come from families who are earning as high as 600,000 per annum. We don't go beyond that. That's one huge policy that we have to make sure that students with disabilities, not only are they not discriminated, but they are assisted in such a way that we take into account their needs. In addition to that, NSFAS provides for additional gadgets and other assistive devices that are needed by students with disabilities. The question of the missing middle, government has been working with universities, and I'm pleased to say that a number of universities have got bursaries and scholarships for missing middle students. It's not enough. At the moment, we are finalizing our own approach on what kind of system should actually be put in place in order to assist all students from what we call the missing middle. But students with disabilities, as I say, they would ordinarily, if they didn't have disabilities, be part of the missing middle. But they are not, because they are being catered for up to family income of 600,000 rands. And that makes a very, very big difference. Now, I think there is a confusion on the issue of SASSA beneficiaries and the 350 rands. And I must clarify this, because otherwise it's a story that continues based on complete misunderstanding, if in some instances deliberate misinformation to try and discredit some of the things that we are doing. All SASSA beneficiaries, what do we mean in our case? All those children who are on child grant, when then they reach 18 and they matriculate, or they are taken at a college and of course at a university, they are automatically given NSFAS, all of them. Now, it's those who are receiving the child grant who automatically qualify for NSFAS. The 350 rands, two things must be clarified about it, has been a temporary grant which has now been extended till April, if I'm not mistaken, for those South Africans who are unemployed with no other source of income, who are also not receiving any grant from the state that qualified for the 350 rand. Now, what does that mean? It means we have said if you receive any type of grant from government, you don't qualify for 350 rand, including NSFAS students. NSFAS students, they are already receiving assistance from government for purposes of studies. Therefore, you can't be getting a NSFAS grant and be getting the 350. The 350 rands is not meant for those. It's meant for those who are unemployed, who are not receiving any other form of a grant or assistance from government. So there's no exclusion. It's an exclusion insofar as it is government policy, because you can't be having some people getting NSFAS and 350 rands. What about the other South Africans who then in the process get deprived of the necessary assistance that is actually needed? So this thing is I hope it's clear. I hope it's clear. If you're receiving NSFAS, you don't qualify for the 350 rands grant because you are already getting assistance from government to study and acquire a qualification. I think that's all. Maybe between the DG and Tandi, I don't know who wants to provide the figures. I don't have the figures on my fingertips.
Thank you very much, Minister. Good afternoon, colleagues. In respect to this matter of students who have applied to universities at the present moment, what is happening in the system? A student would apply to more than one institution, more than one university. And as an applicant, that student would be counted in all these institutions he or she has applied to. Therefore, when an institution is saying, for argument's sake, we've got 15,000 spaces, 15,000 applicants, but we're having 8,000 spaces. It doesn't actually mean that those students are only destined for that institution. So a student gets offered spaces maybe in 3 or 4 institutions. You take one, then the spaces are getting released from other institutions. That's what is happening in the system. We did it too. You choose at that particular moment when you have feedback from all institutions you have applied to. Said, all right, I'm going to this institution. And normally, you don't even come back to the institutions you applied to that have admitted you to say, no, I'm no longer coming. So the institutions have worked out particular plans to cater for this eventuality. Now, what we are doing for the medium to long term, we are establishing a new system, central application system, which would actually allow a student to submit an application just once, and it gets administered for placement in an institution that a student has picked up as his or her preference. But we're still working on that, is coming. So at the present moment, what then we are doing to assist students who may not have been admitted or applied later, there is a central clearinghouse application system. We call it CATCH. So all students who may not have been admitted to any institution, they get rerouted to CATCH. That system assists students to get placement in any available space within the institution. So those are the mechanisms that are in place in order to assist students. So if you are not admitted in a particular institution, don't lose hope. The department is there through this system to actually assist you. You get calls, and if you are not contacted, our contact details are normally spelled out. Just check at our website. Everything is in there. The budget, the amount that NSFAS has, that has been budgeted for, is 35 billion rands. It's a lot of money. But as the minister indicated earlier on, this money had to be used for unintended circumstances as a result of COVID-19, because the academic year had to be extended, and throughout, students had to be catered for in terms of allowance, accommodation, as well as the entire package of the extension of the academic year. So what then the minister is addressing is the shortfall that has been identified. That's why there is this impact for first-time entrants to institutions that is being addressed quite aggressively, and a resolution is forthcoming before the end of week in that respect. And the minister has actually assured all those who are qualifying not to panic. The matter is receiving adequate attention. But currently the budget is 35 billion. It's not enough. There is a shortfall, and that shortfall is being attended to by the executive authority in the department. Thank you very much.
But, the number?
Oh, the numbers. Yeah. The number of the spaces for new entrants in the entire system, that is university system or sector, is 184,315. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG. Let me also provide the cash reference number. All students need to sign up by sending their name and ID number to the following number: 31629, 31629, or visit our department website at www.dhet.gov.za, or you can also email us at catch, that is CACH, at dhet.gov.za. Please send all your inquiries by SMS or by email. Then the department will be able to respond and guide you accordingly. Thank you very much. Do we have any further questions before we can clarify? Yes, Ignatius? We can close?
Yes, Mr. Nisi. Nobukaina Dambo from Jacaranda FM News. There appears to be a standoff between students and management at vets over fees and historical debt? Is the minister aware of this matter? And are there plans to intervene or facilitate discussions? And the second question, what impact will the 2 weeks extension to the registration period have on the year? Will the provisions be made for new students which include accommodation fees for on-site and off-site accommodation? And I have Nazir from Glow TV.
Sorry, can you repeat that one?
The second one.
Accommodation?
Will the provisions made for new students include accommodation fees for on-site and off-site accommodation? And I have Nazir.
Just that, Cash, Ignatius, are you talking about the extension? Whether they will be extended to be provided with accommodation and other amenities that they would want?
It's a separate question, Mr.
Okay.
Minister.
All right.
Nazir from Glow TV. Has there any rent relief from private student accommodation owners who have contracts with universities for Feb and March? Thanks.
Thank you. The first question, Minister, are you aware of what is happening at vets?
Are all the questions done?
Yeah, we are done, Minister, with questions.
Okay.
Thank you. And this is the last set of questions we are taking for this media briefing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the question from Nokai. Yes, we are aware of the discussions, negotiations, and engagements that are taking place at Wits University between management and the students. Our approach is that we encourage negotiations and discussions such that such matters are actually resolved. As the department, that's just how far we can be able to go by encouraging all parties to be able to engage and wish to successfully conclude the situation. We are aware that Wits University is one of those universities that has gone the extra mile to try and raise funds to support certain categories of students, especially students who are in the missing middle that we normally talk about. Obviously, we are aware that that's never enough, often. That is why, as government ourselves, we are looking at possibly a system that could be able at least to assist students in the missing middle. Obviously, it will have to come outside of government's fiscus, because the government fiscus cannot be able to absorb that. Possibilities maybe to even have a loan system that can be able to be an affordable loan system to assist students in the missing middle. The impact of 2 weeks extension of the registration period for first-year students, well, it will differ from university to university, because some of the institutions in any case have not started. They were going to be starting middle of March or late in March. All what one wants to say is that the fact that we are starting the academic year late, that puts additional pressure. We are much aware of that, because it means this year again, like last year, it's going to be a shorter year. We hope it won't be shorter than it happened last year, as we hopefully are able to deal better with COVID-19, including vaccination. But we are aware. However, it's better to delay for 2 weeks and ensure that NSFAS students are not disadvantaged than to have 2 weeks advantage in terms of the academic year and excluding poor students. And then universities will, as they always do, will come with methods, ways and means of ensuring that they are able as much as possible to cover the 2021 academic year in 2021, hopefully. Now, for accommodation and fees, I'm sure that the fact that students are starting late this year, which means also they will start paying accommodation when they start occupying that accommodation this year. We are not expecting them to pay for accommodation when they have not started occupying it. I know, though, what is buried beneath this question, often in public. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Is that, aren't students going to be disadvantaged by the fact that they are starting late by not getting private accommodation? I think maybe that's what is also buried within this question. Well, we hope not, because in particular areas, a number of institutions will be starting at particular times, and we hope that accommodation will be available in those areas because they would not have been taken by others. Well, the situation may be different if you are talking about maybe, but even if when you are talking Johannesburg, Wits and UJ, I think they're going to start at about the same time, not differently. Maybe Tswana may be slightly different because TUT is going to start later than the University of, finished later than the University of Pretoria. But I'm pleased that the discussions we're having with the Vice Chancellors today have that understanding that we will do all we can. When we say we are delaying for 2 weeks, we will do all we can also that we minimize as much as possible that certain students get disadvantaged, even in terms of getting accommodation. Universities have been negotiating each year with private accommodation provider. It's slightly easier where there is a university or college accommodation, but to negotiate with private accommodation providers that students are not necessarily disadvantaged. Now, relief for accommodation, I wasn't sure what this question really is about, unless it's relating to the past year, because the issue has been raised in relation to the past year as to what relief is there. Again, you will remember that we had urged universities to negotiate with private accommodation providers to say, how do we deal with the situation where students were not occupying the accommodation? I know that in some institutions, there is a demand, even from NSFAS students, that if they did not occupy accommodation, that money must be sent back. Well, the guideline essentially is that unspent NSFAS money must go back to NSFAS, not to individual students. If there was money allocated for accommodation by NSFAS that was not used, it must go back to NSFAS. It can't go to the students' pockets. At least that one is easier. But when it comes to those students who are paying for themselves in private student accommodation, we then said there should be these negotiations. So far, the situation has not been perfect, but has largely been manageable because universities in particular have been dealing for a long time now with private accommodation providers. And there has to be accommodation of each other because we've been dealing with a virus that and an experience that we have never dealt with before. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister DG, DDD, Dr. Thandi. I don't think we still have further questions from Ignatius and from the other members of the media in the House. Therefore, this brings us to the end of our media briefing. As the Minister indicated, we will be having a detailed media briefing on the reopening of the academic year 2021. We will invite you as we normally do. Hopefully it will be before the end of this week. Thank you very much. Till next time. Thank you.